We just wanted to make a place where people felt safe and comfortable with no obligation to do any particular thing that they didn't want to do. It's difficult to find those spaces.
This program contains coarse language and discusses mature themes. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome back to The Birds and the Bee with me, Chelsea B, and also producer, co-host at this point, Matt.
That is my name.
And Nino, the cat.
You figured it out. Yes, we have a cat with us today. We have a
few cats.
A few cats.
Today, we thought we would talk about throwing parties, play parties, hosting, coordinating, curating, all of the things that go into, hosting a play party.
Right.
Throwing
so
a play party.
We did a couple of our own small-scale private parties. You know, we had a lot of questions about organizing them, and also it seems to become a more popular thing as we're swiping through Field and Tinder and stuff. We're seeing more and more people at the end taglining, "Oh, by the way, we throw our own parties." So having been a group party connoisseur, I figured, hey...
Could be a good little discussion topic.
Could be a good little discussion topic. There's some unsexy logistics involved.
Yes, most of it is unsexy because you plan and coordinate up until this one night that lasts for a few hours, but the detail that goes into hosting parties is extensive.
And the memories last forever.
That they do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's start maybe with your own experiences first. Tell us something a little sexy vignette here.
I mean, my own, I guess, journey into the play party scene. I only went to my first play party probably about 2 years ago.
Oh, who'd you go with?
You.
Me? Aww.
Yes, I went with you. And then we started, then we got immersed into the creator world, being online content creators, and then decided that we had a good space to host parties. And we wanted to have a separate life within our lifestyle that was outside of the pressures and responsibilities that come with making content. And, you know, we quickly learned that there were many responsibilities that go into hosting and curating our own play party. But I will say that once we kind of started that journey, it was, I mean, to me, it's one of, you know, since moving out of New York, it's one of the things that I miss most.
Tell us, like, go back, like, bring us to, like, newbie Chelsea of, like, the frenzy and the lust of entering into a play space for the first time. Hold my hand and walk me through that again. Turn me onto this.
My first few play parties that we attended, I was just filled with a lot of anxiety.
Sorry, you were saying...
Anxiety. I was so nervous. I was just like, what do I expect? What do I bring? What do I wear? What's going to happen? How do I make things happen at the party? And you know, we became members of a few different clubs in the city. And with each of those, you know, came like a questionnaire. A few came with like a phone call to kind of go over my answers. And I feel like a lot of those experiences kind of fueled the way that we ran our own party. But I had lots of fun. It was something that kind of awakened this new part of me that I didn't know existed, and I didn't know could exist. And so for me, it was a very enlightening experience. And coinciding with being a creator, it was very nice to be able to have nights where you and I could go and kind of explore these different parts of our relationship and things that we liked without the pressure of filming. And, you know, obviously we had to take into consideration like the schedule and like punctuality, but outside of that, there wasn't the editing and the screenplay, like it
The
was
screenplay? Yes. I wrote it myself.
not a screenplay, but like a script or like a storyline.
Storyline, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without having to have that kind of added pressure. But I had my own anxieties going into these things, and eventually they kind of eased over time. And
Was that something that like had to ease over? Like, was there structure in place at the first parties that you went to that eased that nervous energy, or was it simply just it dissipated with time, or a little bit of both?
Yes and no. I mean, the first party I ever went to, took place on a Friday. Like there was a prior event during the week where you went to a bar and you met other couples who were attending the party that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really nice, I felt it was a really, like there was, and we've had a guest on who was like an icebreaker at this event. JJ, yes, mm-hmm. Who really eased my fears. Really, I felt like that was a really good way to kind of segue into the scene, mm-hmm. with me being such a newbie, and a way to just meet people. And it was because my big fear is like, okay, we get there, what do I do? Like, how do I
It's like the first day of school all over again.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, yeah. So yeah, that was challenging for me. But going to that event, and then we went to a few private parties after that, which I was more familiar with the scene at mm-hmm. that point. But it was a very intimidating and scary thing for me. And so I feel like when we started hosting our party, I wanted to kind of like ease those fears. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what we kind of did when we started, curating our own party.
I find that a little bit ironic because one of the first group things that you did was a gangbang.
Fair, but I had always wanted to be gangbanged. But I feel like a gangbang is separate than very different than a play party, because in a gangbang, it's like I get to be the center focus. Everyone's mm-hmm. making sure that I'm comfortable. At a play party, I'm wanting to make sure that everyone else is comfortable. So it's a different mentality
compared to just attending a play party.
Right. Yeah. I mean, being gangbanged versus attending or hosting a play party feels like apples and oranges.
Right.
They feel like different experiences.
Because of that pressure that you're taking on, or the pressure as defined by responsibilities.
There's a pressure to perform in a gangbang, okay. Or a pressure to maintain, a pressure to have longevity, to have stamina, mm-hmm. which feels very separate than what comes with going to a play party, especially in my early days.
Oh, those early days. So long ago.
Early days, I know. So actually not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. But I don't know if they're comparable, honestly. And especially like there's being gangbanged and then there's being gangbanged on film, which I've experienced both. And yes. Both of those are also very different experiences. And one of the things that I liked, which I like, honestly, the most, especially after being a creator, is that the pressure of being filmed and the pressure of performing does not exist at a play party, because most of them, or all of the ones that I've attended or hosted, there's no filming. There are no cameras. There are no phones allowed. Yeah. So it takes away that pressure of being, I wouldn't say watched, because I love being watched in a lot of different capacities. Like I feel very much like I am an exhibitionist. So it's a different type of being watched versus being filmed.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, those are apples and oranges, because when people are applying to parties in New York City, there's strictly no cameras, but when we're creating content, we're also creating an impression, a fantasy of what a party may be like for other people. And we've also evolved on that point to try to make it more realistic as we've filmed more group scenes over time, which we can kind of weave in and out of later. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but yeah.
I mean, there's just, it's a whole, for me as someone who's taken part in both, you know, being filmed and not being filmed, I just feel like they are completely different experiences. And my mindset in attending a party in the early years or in the, you know, the early times versus being part of a gangbang that's filled, they're just so different. Like there's a different type of anxiety. There's a different type of pressure. There's a different type. It's just a different mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to then just your first party, not filmed, not a gangbang. Like you're attending a semi-public party that you applied to. You walk through the door. Besides the anxiety, like give me what other body chemicals are going through your system at that moment?
Oh, it's hard because my nerves and anxiety were so overwhelming at that point. And it wasn't until, you know, it's not until I'm like in the playroom and like literally being fucked where that kind of dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, and I do feel like the foreplay event that led me to like, okay, we're meeting couples. Hey, I'll see you at the party. It's nice to like see a familiar face, which I think why that, you know, foreplay event was so valuable for me as a newbie. Yeah, it was a lot of, again, I was kind of overwhelmed by anxiety. What do I do? What do I say? How do I know? It just wasn't comfortable for me until after a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to kind of lose myself in the night when I was in the playroom having, you know, met someone or come in contact with someone that I, you know, found that I wanted to play with.
Yeah.
But then even after, it was like afterwards, I'm just like absorbing all of this. So it wasn't even there. The comfortability didn't set in until after a few. And we'll talk about this later, I'm sure. But that was a big aspect of how we curated our own parties, in trying to kind of mitigate those anxieties and fears. Because I feel like we had a lot of newbies, a lot of first timers at our parties. So that was really important to me. But personally, yeah, it was just a lot of nerves. It was just a lot of, I wouldn't say fear, but just anxiousness in this isn't, and
You're making it sound terrifying right now for like.
And I don't mean to make it sound terrifying. I'm just telling the truth in that I was terrified.
Right.
Genuinely. Just because before you, I was completely monogamous. I mean, not completely. I was a unicorn in my early college days. That is accurate in that I just had a lot of fear. I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of things that I was thinking about other than my own pleasure. And it took me a while to kind of, and by our last party, I mean, I'm getting eaten out in the middle of our living room and people are leaving and I'm like, bye, thank you for coming, as like I'm about to come, you know. And it took me a very long time to get to that point. But I think all of that is also to say that it's okay to have those fears in the beginning and to kind of go along your own journey of like getting comfortable in those spaces.
But to clarify, the desire was always there.
Sure.
But the obstacles were also very present and unavoidable.
Yes. And I think that I've always been I mean, from a very early, like into early adulthood, I feel like I've been an exhibitionist. And especially being a unicorn in my early college days, I loved a husband watching me fuck his wife. Like that was always kind of a thing that I knew that I liked. But it wasn't until, you know, now I'm 32, and it wasn't until I was 29 when we met, I believe.
Right, yeah.
Where I kind of was able to explore that part of me. So, yeah, it's been my own journey. All of that to say is it's okay to have your own journey with it.
So you experienced a couple parties. They were you know, in the 3 categories, just to recap, they were like gangbangs designed just for you, completely unfilmed, private. There were content creator parties.
Yes.
Where we filmed for adult channels.
Yes.
Only schmans. We don't have to give them advertisement here. And then there were just like quote unquote normal, but like New York City semi-public play parties where anybody can go to. Phones
not
are
anyone, members.
Members. I'm saying like the public non-creators,
right?
Because there's no phones, there's no cameras,
no filming,
anything like that. So those 3 categories, and then we decided to take everything that we absorb from that and create an opportunity for people to come to parties that we had designed.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit, like, how did that come about? Like, how did we decide one day to be like, you know what, let's just do this thing?
I think it was a segue, like a conduit of multiple things, one of which was when you are a creator, it just involves so much work, so much planning, so much revolved around filming, being filmed, and having sex on camera versus not on camera. If you haven't experienced it, I'm sure, as you can imagine, it's just a very different experience. And so, and you and I were in the lifestyle before we became content creators. And so I think we wanted, and I don't want to say I wanted a way to kind of meld my own sexual desires with my content creation, with loving being a host of just things. I love hosting things. I love being, I love putting together parties. And so it was kind of a meld. It was kind of, like a confluence of different things that I just genuinely enjoyed. And we had a really good space, I think, that we lived in for hosting events. And so, and I don't even remember like a specific conversation that came about, but I just remember being like, maybe we should try and host our own play party.
Right. Well, I think I remember a little bit of that conversation.
Please share.
The conversation went a little bit like this. There is this space that we have in Brooklyn that takes over the top floor of this nice building, and a combination of your sister was our roommate. I can say that, right? Like, and then
my sister knows everything.
She knows everything. And she was about to move out, so we had this extra bedroom, and we had a situation at hand where they were about to raise the rent by 50%.
50.
Not 15, 50%. And actually,
fucking New York.
Tiny bit of an aside, the apartment I came before that, they also raised the rent by 50%. So 50%, then I moved in with you, and then they raised it by 50%. So I'm just freaking hopping from apartment to apartment. Anyway, so, and then your sister moves out. That means there's another bedroom that we need to fill. And I said, well, I think there's 2 options. Either we host parties and we monetize to offset a little bit of this rent, or we find a subletter. And if I remember correctly, you said hell no to the subletter idea.
I was just like, I did not want a subletter because we were filming content in the apartment, and to try and coordinate with living with someone else and our living room was we filmed a lot in the living room.
Yeah.
We had a rooftop. There were just a lot of factors. And I was like, yeah, let's just host a party, charge a certain amount to and we went all out for these parties. Like,
we'll get into that part.
Yes.
We're going to lead into that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Accurate.
Yeah. And I agree. Like, it's also kind of a weird, like, late stage capitalism thing where it's like, we need to make rent. So let's host a play party, which was strangely enough.
I would put that in like a late stage.
I think I would
attach like a late stage capitalism label. That's not what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about what we did.
We would have spent more time kind of flushing out that idea if it weren't for the stakes being so high with the way that New York real estate is still going currently. So I think it was a catalyst, and it put us in a tight position where we had to think about it, because as you said, it's like that, making content, having a subletter.
I mean, I also had a day job.
A day job in terms of like...
Well, just outside of being a content creator,
Mm-hmm.
having a day job, and also not being able to pay bills.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, it's like that is like the late stage capitalist idea. Like,
Okay.
we don't have to get into the
I don't want to
philosophy
get
of
into
economics here,
I don't
but-
want to get into the philosophy of late stage capitalism.
But
Continue.
anyway, so being in this position where the catalyst is rent and then having our own play parties.
Expenses high, income low.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We took the resources that we had, we put together an idea, and like a lot of people, we kind of migrated our idea to the apps. But as we discovered, not everybody had the same sort of like philosophy as we did when it came to curating a guest list. And a lot of that came down to where our checklist begins here, with giving tips to people who want to start their own play parties, which is how to do it, and how to do it in a way that makes everyone feel good, that makes everyone feel safe.
Safety was our number one priority. Safety. And I feel like I would say 90% of people that came to each party we had never met before in person. And so how do you cultivate a comfortable space for people that you've never met?
Well, how do you do it? Tell us, please.
I mean, to start, and I give you a lot of credit, Matt did a lot of the curating. You know, he did a lot of like the advertising.
I did.
I'm giving
Thank
you the
Yes,
credit.
yeah.
We advertised on Field, on FetLife, on Reddit. And then Matt created an application. So it was like a questionnaire. It had just basic questions. Tell us who you are. And I will say at the forefront was we did not allow single applicants. You either were part of a couple or part of a trio.
Throuple, as the kids
throuple.
are calling it these days.
Well, but I feel like we had a trio. We had trios come, and they were not in a throuple.
But okay, so getting ahead. But yes, you're right. But they had to know each other.
Sure.
There had to be a relationship, because there were people.
That's a trio, not a throuple. Because I feel like throuple insinuates that the three of them are in a relationship.
But I think a trio can also just insinuate that there's three people.
Exactly.
But they had to have a relationship of some sort. They couldn't be
Sure.
strangers. They couldn't be strangers, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, when we interviewed them, which gets to a later point, we talked to all of them, how you know each other.
Right. Because we told people, like, you had to come as either a couple or in a group of three. If you came in as a group of...
Or a trio.
I'm saying that, like, the fact is that you're getting semantics or not, like, trio, but they just had to know each other.
Yes.
Because we had people...
We also had friends come as a duo.
Right.
Not necessarily a couple.
But we had men ask us, hey, I'll find another guy to come. And I'm like, what do you mean find another guy? It's like, I don't know. I'll just like find another guy on an app somewhere and I can bring him, right?
But then those two wouldn't fill out the application. And so the process was we had an application which had questions about, your names. We have you send a picture. We ask you about your philosophy on sex. We propose a few different scenarios and how you would react or what your behavior would be in those scenarios. And your questions don't always have to be like, quote unquote, correct. You can, and I will say, at one of my first the parties that we went to, you have to apply. You have to do the same sort of process.
Right.
And there were a few questions that I got wrong, but I was educated on them. And so we wanted to kind of instill the same mentality. So it's not that you had to get every question. We didn't have like a set standard of you have to get every question, quote unquote, right. Because we do have we had a trick question that we threw in just to kind of gauge your, not experience, but to gauge your
ability to listen and adapt and communicate, I feel.
And just your knowledge on this, the party world, which is
right. Yeah. So people who came from a swinger background versus people who came from a kinkster background versus people who come from more just a polycule background.
Do you want to share our trick question?
Sure.
Okay.
So
the question, our trick question was, you walk into one of the rooms and you see a very intense spanking paddle scene happening, and it's very hot to you, and you want to join in. So the question is, how do you insert yourself into this session? And it's a trick question because you do not insert yourself into a scene that's happening. Because
what is a scene, and why not? Why not? Why can I not?
Because in a type of power dynamic scene where there's, be it paddle, be it spanking, be it rope play, be it a flogging session, be it a dom sub session, if there's a power dynamic between, or any sort of dynamic between two people where there is a previously agreed relationship with boundaries and rules, you as an outsider do not insert yourself into that situation. So you let it play out, you observe from afar, and then afterwards compliment them on the scene, maybe talk about, your desire to engage in something like that. And then if they say no, then that's your encounter of respectful rejection, and then you move on.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So that was our kind of trick question. And it's not a trick. And if someone answered, if a couple answered, oh, I slowly approach and I, touch their leg, or I say oh, this is so hot, I want to join, it doesn't automatically disqualify you. That's a moment for education.
Sure.
So, and this is to say that after a couple or a throuple or a trio submits their application, you are required to have a FaceTime with Matt and I. So we have to have a FaceTime we had a FaceTime with every single couple, regardless of, it was just a requirement. So even if your answer to that was incorrect, I guess,
we wanted to hear out your thought process.
Right. Then it's a moment for education. Just okay, no, this isn't what you would do. Here's what you would do instead. And then we kind of segue that into, and these are the kind of rules and boundaries and the guidelines that we have for our party, so that it's also an introduction into, I feel like, how a lot of parties are run.
We were trying to bring together different aspects of the non-monogamy community. So yes, there are parties that we've been to for just kinksters that are different than more hetero swingery.
We've been to
a
shibari party.
We've been to a shibari party, a suspension party. We've been to events where, I think I've been to more just more queer, poly specific events that predate our relationship. So I felt, and you and I have shared different vibes, and we wanted to create a community where those vibes aren't as segregated. They're shared learning experiences, but there are also experiences where the aesthetics play out, where there is a separate kink room, there is a separate communal party area. There is a separate bar area. There is a separate area where there is no general play. You know, it's sort of a relaxed
Our goal was
area.
to set a baseline so that even if you were so experienced in the party world, you had been to 100 parties, and even if this was going to be your first party, we wanted to create a baseline to where the range would feel comfortable. So we had the application, we had the FaceTime, you know, and we had the same conversation with every couple, regardless of experience level, regardless of answers that they submit on their questionnaire. And then, you know, we had a set start time for the party with like a mingle hour. And then we had a cutoff time, which was like 10 p.m. You have to arrive before 10 p.m. because at 10 p.m. the play will start and you don't want people coming in and out. That will kind of like mess up the vibe. And then before play started at like 9:45, we had one more consent talk, which is just enthusiastic consent. Just again, laying the ground rules so that regardless of your experience level, everyone's hearing the same thing. Everyone's playing by the same rules. If you are not interested, you don't have to be there.
The thing about play parties is that they are called play parties.
Right.
We say the word sex party to kind of clickbait things when it comes to applications or content or
I
whatever.
don't think, did we ever called it a sex party? I feel like we always called it a play
Well,
party.
we call it sometimes sex party for shorthand because people are more familiar with the idea of a sex party than a play party.
Yes. I feel like we tried to not call it sex party because there was you also did not have to have sex at our party.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
There were many couples that were like, this is our first time. We kind of just want to experience the atmosphere, the environment. Do we have to have sex with someone? And it's like, oh my God, no. No.
But there were some couples that were like, we can
It's
only
very
come if we have sex.
Right. And it's like,
It's neither
you have
or.
to understand no one is obligated to do anything that of which they are not comfortable at the party ever. That is never an obligation. And then we encourage respectful rejection. So if a couple comes up to you and they want to play, and then you can just respectfully say, no, I'm not into that, and then move on.
People come for all different reasons.
Yes.
Some people just come to play with each other and they just like the idea
watched.
of being watched.
Yes.
We accepted the idea that some voyeurism is okay if it's respectable from a distance and you're not like leering over people.
Right.
Be conscious. And we had to spell that out for some people because people were like, we don't want to assume what you mean. Like literally spell it out. So a lot of, for me, my learned experiences for that was like, you really do have to spell things out because people do come from so many different experiences. And I'm not just talking about previously what we talked about, like poly versus kink versus all that, like parties in Berlin versus London versus San
Burning
Francisco
Man.
versus Burning Man
versus there are so many things. So I think that was such a significant part of our parties, was just setting a baseline, setting ground rules so that everyone is operating off of the same guidelines. We had people of just all different experience levels. This is making me miss the party so much, talking about them. I miss throwing a
You're being
party.
very clinical in your analysis, but I can tell you're getting horny about it.
A, getting horny about it, and B, just like genuinely, I'm just like thinking about all of like these couples that we had there.
They were sweet. They were cuties.
We had so many. If you're watching this and you came to one of our play parties, I adore you and I miss you.
Anyway.
Sorry. Continue.
So to kind of paint the scene here, and people can like go into the episode that JJ, the play party icebreaker person, did, which will be released before this one. The type of party that we put together, we haven't talked about yet because we try to create a more disarming, loungy feel. And I feel like a lot of people that came to our party or were interested in our party, they've come across two things in New York. They've come across like these loft-like Manhattan, the Tux hot wife type
Everyone's invited
elitist.
if you buy a ticket.
It sounds exclusive. It seems swanky, and it's also very stuffy type of thing, or like a crazy burner warehouse thing in Bushwick. That's the two kind of vibes that I feel like people had experience with in New York City. And we had like video games.
Which I wouldn't want to go to either of those experiences
Yeah.
that you're saying because, and as we had talked about in our episode with JJ, if women aren't made to feel comfortable, they're not having fun. And if women aren't having fun, the party's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, as you alluded to before, like we had games, we had Dirty Jenga, we had...
oh my God, I could talk about, first of all.
You had fun making Dirty... So Dirty Jenga, by the way, is like you take the generic...
I got a Jenga set, but it was a generic Jenga and it was just blank blocks. And so I wrote little prompts
Dares.
on each block. There was some
Truth or dares.
It was
Yeah.
truths or dares on each blocks. And, we had like the arrival hour, we had the icebreaker hour where we would play our dirty games. I was so proud of Dirty Jenga. We also hired a bartender
I was just going to say, to keep the flow going...
so that you and I could focus on being hosts. I don't want to call myself like a necessary guardian because at most parties I was playing
like
at some point.
You were kind of the fluffer.
I was just like the little like fairy, like floating around and jumping into like different couples and
you
playing.
the
I
fluffer.
loved to play at our play parties. So sue me. Don't. Yeah, but I felt like having a bartender. Shout out to
Our bartender.
our bartender. If you're watching this, you know who you are. I adore you. You were amazing. Having a bartender to kind of also monitor consumption and just, if someone's being unruly, which I think we're very lucky that we never had a situation where we had to kick someone out for being too intoxicated.
No, I mean, it wasn't perfect.
Sure.
But no situation is perfect.
Right.
And you have to put in...
We had a few situations that we had to deal with afterwards.
There were, but also just to specify, so it was BYOB.
Yes.
But the bartender would mark your drink so that there was no anxiety that anyone is tampering
Right.
with people's drinks.
And then we provided mixers, or if you wanted to bring your own ingredients for like a special cocktail, that's fine.
Right.
And then we would provide, I loved making our charcuterie boards. We had good snacks. I feel like we had good snacks. We had good
You had
games.
a charcuterie board.
I had two, first of all.
It was a board in the shape of a hammerhead shark, and you would call it your...
It was a charcuterie board. I didn't just call it that. It was that.
And that's going into some logistics because that meant that I had to keep my Costco membership. And
We shared the Costco membership.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I'm not
okay.
discrediting the sharing part. I'm just saying that
It goes into the planning in that throwing a successful, or depending on your just definition of successful, but we did put a lot of thought into, okay, we have fruit out, we have pineapple, we have very light snacks, we have mixers, like the things that, I don't know, I feel like helped contribute to a successful event.
the diversity in vibes also reflected our intent as well. So we tried to have a diverse guest list.
And then I feel like we were fortunate to have, so we had 2 bedrooms, we had a big open living room, and then we had a rooftop space, which is rare in New York. RIP to our old apartment.
It's still there for 150% of what we paid for.
Nah, let's not go there. But we had like our primary bedroom was kind of a more warm and cozy vibe. So we had, like a candle, we had dim lighting. It was more relaxed. And then we had like the more kinky room, which towards the end I was really proud of, because on one wall I had put up like all of my like bondage gear on one wall, and then I created a wig wall. So I love wigs. So I hung up all of like the wigs on the wall, and then it was just like a very like more kinky. That was kind of for like the like scenes and more. It was like a playroom.
Yeah.
And then the living room, you know, we had set up a lot of different, and Matt had a formula for how many mattresses we had for how many people were coming.
Okay. For the listener only, she winked.
I winked.
For the...
And then the roof was kind of like a breather space, except for there was one party when I like walked upstairs onto the roof and there were like people fucking all on the roof, which made me so happy.
But usually it was...
But we had like a little fire pit. We had like music. We had music going in all of the rooms.
That's not legal in New York, by the way, the fire pit, but we can just forewarn.
It's fucking fine.
I mean, I think Eric Adams might be listening, so...
Yeah. Eric Adams
and there was so much marijuana too, Eric Adams. No, go ahead.
There was. Yeah, you had to smoke weed upstairs in case anyone had any allergies. So we tried to be conscious of creating different vibes, different spaces, areas.
And also there are a lot of people who come that are sober. So we had to have sober
just regular snacks.
Just regular
and then
snacks.
Also just mixers.
Mixers.
So that to be aware, yeah.
Gatorade.
Oh yes, we had
lots
a
of
little
electrolytes.
We had a refrigerator like right before you went outside onto the rooftop space that was just
a beverage
fridge, like non-alcoholic drinks. Because a lot of people, I don't know if I want to say a lot of people, but there are people who are sober.
A significant amount. And I think that is sort of a dichotomy in the play party scene, is that people come because there are a lot of people who have had situations earlier in life where they're now sober for whatever reason, respect to whatever reason that they have. So they have options, and that this is where they're at. And, you know, that I respect that a lot. They don't want to do that. And we just have options.
The point is to create an environment where every person who is attending has a way of feeling comfortable. Because our whole point is, if you feel comfortable, then you're more likely to have a good time. You're more likely to just kind of like, I don't want to say let loose, but just kind of be yourself without these like, and I attribute a lot of these decisions that we made to like my anxieties that came, and like, this is not to diss on any of the parties that we went to, but I feel like we used a lot of our experiences to just try and create, because we had a lot of newcomers, a lot of people where they're very intimidated by the party scene. This is the first time they've ever done this as a couple, and we just wanted to make a place where people felt safe and comfortable and with no obligation to do any particular thing that they didn't want to do. And I just feel like it's difficult to find those spaces. And so and I'm sure we made our own plethora of mistakes, but that was my goal in hosting our parties.
I concur.
Yeah.
I concur. Which leads me to my next prompt, which people often have asked. So you only invited hot people, right?
No. Oh my gosh,
to
no.
the party, right? Like,
I don't care what you look like. We asked for a photo of you and your partner, or you and your partner and a third, only so that if at some point you reach out to us by name, I can identify you. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how you identify. None of that matters to me. Honestly, I wanted it to be a very queer friendly. I wanted to, I don't think that we had trans people, which I wish we would have had.
No, I think we did.
Yeah, I don't care what you look like. I don't care if you're hot. Hotness and beauty is subjective.
Well, so, I mean, here's the thing: is like when people, we had some people inquire that are like, are how many hot people?
Yeah, are there going to be? Yeah, we don't want to go to a place where there aren't hot people. And to me, I'm like, okay, well, this isn't the party for you, because I don't know who you consider hot.
Exactly.
And that's not a factor for us.
How do I know what you consider hot? Because there are some people that are friends of ours that came that I know that are into so many different things.
Yeah.
That are into
Beauty is subjective. That's it.
Yeah.
Beauty is subjective.
But
Yes.
that is to say that if I did kind of curate the guest list to focus on certain types of people, where if there was an overabundance of, say, people over the age of 45, to diversify the list, I would say, okay, there's so many people over the age of 45. I need to get some people under the age of 45.
You were very good at like there's a word I'm looking for. Implementing diversity. You were
Right.
good at like, okay, we have this many people. And we would also have like, it was like a third of people we'd never met before, a third of people that we had played with before, but we're not creators.
Just friends. Yeah.
Just friends, a third of people that were creators. And again, I feel like we tried to also make it an outlet. And like we always told our, the creators that we've worked with, this is a night where you can just be in the lifestyle without the pressure of being filmed, which was all.
And they were also great fluffers too, just like yourself.
Yes, they're, good fluffers. You spearheaded that.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is like.
But you and I were always, you had to have a FaceTime with both you and I.
Right. True. But my point being that like I do like seeing people come together that I sort of saw from a distance, and I'm like, oh, you guys would get along great. And then it was nice that I'm like, oh, I was part of making this happen. And that was my mentality going into creating the list, is because I'm like, okay, you told me in the application, this is the vibe you're looking for. I found another couple that is also looking for the same exact thing. So I constantly thought about different couples that were able to find commonality at our party. And it was, again, a diverse list. So if there were people of a certain kind of part of the lifestyle or whatever, and then they can cross paths, it was nice that I could be part of that and make that happen.
And I feel like we had a few like people follow up with us like weeks, months after a party where they're like, hey, just to let you know, like we went out, like we continued to see this couple that we met at your party. And that just made my little heart so happy. Yeah. I just like, oh my God, I love it. I love to know that.
Okay. So if we had more time to think about the parties, we would have maybe done a couple of things differently in practice. Given all that, what would you have wanted to change? Like what worked, what didn't work? What are some learned lessons for people to go forward, especially now that, again, play parties are being so fucking popular right now because the media attention that polyamory and ethical non-monogamy has, and B, I know you don't like it, but it's like the rent is high and people need to find supplemental income. So what learned lessons do you have for other people out there?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's hard to say because I do feel like our last party was our best party.
Can I start with one?
Yes.
Have a sober guardian.
We did.
No, I'm just saying like a suggestion. Like,
yeah, I would say have a bartender.
Definitely have staff.
Have
staff.
Have people designated to watch over the event, because as a host, and I mean, I'm speaking personally as a host who plays, it's important to have and like there were moments where, a situation happened and we made it very clear, like, when we made our consent speech, we were just like, we always said, if at any time anything is of any concern, come tell one of us. And if I was literally in the middle of getting fucked by someone,
right,
you can come stop me. And that had happened at a few points. And I got up and I go and address the situation. Yeah. But it also is important to have people designated who are not playing, who are just bartender, who are just designated to be a help point, to be just a point of, like, even if you're not going to use them, like, for a safety purpose to have that there, I think is really significant.
And I bit off a little bit more than I could chew too. I thought, oh man, I could and then every single party, the last 48 hours, I got no sleep, virtually. There were some days I just didn't sleep and I couldn't make it through. And I was just too tired to pay full attention to what was going around me. And we needed the extra staff. And it was valuable.
Yes, very valuable.
Very, you can't do it by yourself.
No.
You can't.
No. Allow people to help. And we would charge for our party. It was enough to offset the snacks and the drinks and a little bit of the room, the extra room.
The space.
Which, I mean, I think we broke even each time. I don't think that we actually made a profit.
No, we broke even the last time.
Yeah, but before we were spending more than we were taking in.
But we planned it where it was like, okay, so we spend this amount, and by this party, the fourth party, then we'll break even.
Right.
By the fifth or sixth party,
because
if we play our cards right, we'll
expanding.
Yes.
And so we would buy more supplies, buy more like mattresses, mattress toppers, because
But then we had stuff from the last party. Like, we didn't need to buy 200 more condoms.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, that's an important note. In every room, every playroom, we had a bowl of condoms, and we had a stack of towels. That was important. And then we had an open shower with fresh towels.
An open shower?
The second bathroom was an open shower.
It was okay, all right.
With fresh towels.
Yeah.
It was like we advertised that.
Okay, yeah.
That.
It just sounds like an open shower sounds like something else, but all right.
Okay, not like a shower for everyone to go shower in, but like an available shower to use. Yes. Both of the showers were used. But the important part of that was a bowl of condoms in every room, lube in every room. From the first party, I went to the sex shop and I bought like a bunch of lube, and then I saw this like creme brulee lube, and I was like, I'm gonna get that.
Nobody.
And I bought like 5 packs, and by literally like the last party, there were still like 2 packs left.
You were the only one.
Don't get the creme brulee. The creme brulee lube. I forgot about that for a second. But yeah, we had lubes. Oh, and then we also people who like, for example, were like HSV positive. We had questions of like, okay, what do I do if I have an STI? I want to play. And our rule of thumb was communication, honesty, transparency. Talk to someone, tell them, hey, this is a situation. Be truthful, be communicative, be upfront, and then go from there. And if someone, again, respectfully rejects you for that reason, then move on.
Yeah.
And that's that, which I think is kind of how it should exist in just normal life. Be open and transparent in your situation.
Kind of like how you make porn. Like
yes.
You make the porn that you enjoy seeing, and that you want to create a culture around this type of thing. And, it was kind of reflected in that.
Yeah.
But also, the play parties and just real life situations. And
all of this is not to say we were perfect. In any way, not that we are like, we're setting the standard. No, this is just our experience and how we did it.
In our one dinky apartment, just trying to, create an atmosphere. It wasn't a giant warehouse party. It wasn't Burning Man. It was 2 people who came together and was like, okay, we have an idea to create a standard for a play party. And, again, we had values that we try to put forth out in the world, and
That's all. Sometimes, like that's
some logistics may
we
not have worked out.
and again, I feel like I think our last party was our best party, except for the volume.
The weather, the volume.
No, the amount of people. I feel like there were too many people at our last party.
And we couldn't have anyone on the roof because it was cold and rainy.
It was fucking freezing and it was windy, so
drizzly.
the roof was not able to be used.
We had accounted for that in the body count.
Did we? I don't think that we did because
Yeah.
I feel like because
we accounted
there were
for
too many people.
Right, so we accounted for 10 people rotating on the roof. And since the roof, no one was going on the roof, that 10 people we allotted for on the roof were now in the play space. So that
I did feel bad. There were two couples that were like, we don't have room to play, so we're leaving. Which I was like, okay, you're leaving together. Made a match. That's great. But I did feel bad because it was like at one point, it was too many people.
I mean, they went home with each other, and they told me later that they fucked in their own apartments
that's
together as a group.
That's literally what I just said. They went home together, so I'm happy about that. We made a connection with people. That's what I just said. But it was like, but it was too many people.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I love, the last party was, I think we kind of, it makes me so sad because I feel like we really found our groove, and then we had to move. Found our groove, had to move. Anything else?
I am sure we'll get questions that we'll answer at some other point.
Yeah, would love to answer questions.
We'll tell you the names and brands of things like the IKEA mattress toppers that we used as padding on the
IKEA
floors.
mattress toppers.
There's other non-sexy things to...
Oh, yeah, there's like a 20 pack of just like standard like towels that we used. I got the lube from Purple Passion in NYC.
Duct tape, any light switches.
Yes, duct tape light switch, the flippy light switches, duct tape those
so no one accidentally
lean on it, and then you turn on the big light. It's like
there's a lot of little tiny details.
Not using actual candles, using like Amazon like battery powered candles.
Yeah, there was a lot of wax, and not the
fun wax.
Although the fun wax,
I would love to.
People enjoyed the fun wax.
I feel like I should make my Jenga into like a product. I fucking am so proud of the Jenga.
You're not the only person that's thought of sexy Jenga before, right?
I know that it exists, and I used some from prompts that I found on Etsy, but nobody's was mine. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. I was just really proud of my Jenga. That's it. That's all I got.
That's all you got. All right. Let's peace out of this.
Yeah. So sex parties, play parties 101. Thank you for watching. Ask us questions, and we'll be back next time.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.